This channel is supported by truefire. Truefire is an online library of
You can get the truefire all access pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price you can get truefire all access for.
I don't know if any of you guys have ever thought about like the shifts in your own playing and the kind of guitars that you've ended up playing. I know for me, I started off very much as like a heavier type of guitar type person, you know. RGs featured pretty heavily growing up. I had an RG7620 7-string guitar, an Ibanez SZ320, and then kind of graduated through that into like Musicman Silhouette. And then at uni, or just after uni, or no, during uni, I discovered a G&L Legacy, which I think took me head on into my strat phase, which kind of lasted for quite a while. And then in 2015, I made a parts caster. Up until that point, I had never really owned a Telecaster. I had a G&L ASAT, the Tribute series, but I sold that one quite quickly. This one I built out of parts. I've done loads of videos on this, but it's like a Swamp Ash body, a Mighty Mite neck, K-line pickups in it now, and an Ivana nut. But yes, this has been the guitar that I've had the longest, except for the one back there, which has been in the loft. But it's been, up until recently, I kind of saw myself really as a strat guy. And I had some people point out, like, a lot of your live playing, you seem to be doing on a Tele. Maybe you're a Tele guy. So this is a cautionary tale about all of that. So I've definitely owned many more strats than I have Teles. Specifically K-line Springfields and that sort of thing, like a Fender Custom Shop Strat, bits and pieces like that, bought, you know, Mexican players and all of that sort of stuff. And definitely at home, and I've talked about this before, I do feel very comfortable playing a Stratocaster. But when it comes to live, there's something about the Strat experience which, for some reason, I don't find suits me terribly well. And either a Telecaster or a Les Paul, I've found even more recently, do suit me quite well live. Now, I think there are a couple of elements to this. So bending live on a Telecaster a lot more predictable, you know, whereas on a Strat you've got kind of movement. Whereas on your Telecaster, you've got kind of, when you get to the top of the bend, you don't have to keep going. You kind of, whereas on a Strat, the bridge lifts a bit, and you kind of think, well, that's got to go a bit further for me to get into pitch. The other thing is that, to me, the string tension feels a bit more solid, and I don't know if this is science or not, but it just feels a little bit more robust. Now, I don't know what that is, but maybe my Springfield, the neck angle is one of the things that Chris does differently. Maybe that's partly how the Springfield ends up feeling a bit slinkier. But actually, for some of my live playing, I do prefer the idea of having a guitar which, as I get a bit more nervous and end up sort of putting in a bit more tension, for some reason, the Telecaster with a slightly more tight feel, a little bit less of that loose springy thing, kind of suits me quite well. Another thing with the Stratocaster is those in-between positions, I rarely, if ever, find myself using them live, so those end up kind of being a little bit superfluous. I do kind of miss a trem, but obviously a trem on the Strat is part of what makes the guitar kind of have that softer feel, I think, and especially affects those bends, because it's the trem which means that as you get to the top, depending on setup, that can continue to then pull, and you've got to then compensate up higher up. Now, the cool thing about a Tele, like I've been sort of jamming on this artist the last few days, is that the formula is pretty much tried and tested, and you kind of know what you're going to get with it, right? Now, this is a 22 fret. That one down there that I just had is a 21 fret with a 22nd fret overhang. Although this is an overhang as well, so that's kind of decent. But essentially, no matter how much you spend on a Telecaster, the formula for it to be kind of a good Tele, to me, tend to be the same thing. Now, obviously, you've got the key things like setup, but you've also got elements like weight, which for me, you know, if I can find a Tele under £7, then we're really in business. And this is the cautionary part of the tale, is that you might fall in love with this idea and end up spending an inordinate amount of money on a guitar that essentially looks the same as all of these other guitars that are much cheaper. So this is the Nacho, which I'm sure you've seen me talking about. Expensive because he doesn't make tons of them. Expensive because a lot of time goes into the relicking process on them. And expensive because, you know, people tend to hype them up. Yeah, I really like it. Tom Quell and David Beebe played it too. But it's really hard to get across in a video why this feels like a step above the other Telecasters. And I think that is one thing that you might kind of see people talk about, like a Telecaster shouldn't be a terribly expensive instrument. Of course they are. Like, you could spend £300 on a Tele and get a good one. You can spend £6.5 grand. Would it be a million times better? Probably not, but you might fall in love with it anyway, and that would be problematic. Particularly if you've got a mortgage to pay. if you can find a Tele with a slightly brighter neck pickup, like in the Telecaster that had a Ron Ellis in there, I think you're onto a bit of a winner. I first discovered this when I had a Sir Tele which had a Mike Lando Strat pickup in the neck, and I thought they're onto something here. Typically that's going to be a bit darker, and then the bridge pickup is just a beautiful singing thing. I love a Tele bridge pickup. Particularly on the Nachos, both my buddy Jake's and this one, the bridge pickup has this kind of warmth to it, brightness, but just a really singing kind of thing. So I fell in love with Telecasters, essentially. I now own more Telecasters than I do Strats, and I didn't expect that to be the case, really, but yeah, that's a cautionary tale about Teles. Let me know your favourite Teles in the comments. I did also see some vintage Teles. Me and my buddy Jake were looking at them that weighed like £10. A £10 Tele cannot be that fun. I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers.